Most people know our next guest as a very successful real estate agent, but most people don't realize that he has now transitioned into being a very successful and hardworking insurance agent. Tune into this conversation to learn about how Scott was able to take his real estate career and pivot that into a very successful insurance career. Soon into the conversation. Welcome, guys. Longtime friend of mine is Scott, but I'm really excited to get to know you a little bit more. And so this is the episodes in the series where me and Courtney talk about residential real estate with people who are in that world. Scott, it's exciting because you're kind of rebranding yourself and taking a little bit of a spin, not giving up on real estate from an agent standpoint, but also adding value in another way. And I'm excited to let people know what you're doing.
Yes.
So why don't you kind of talk a little bit about y'all's firm, and then we can get into a deep dive into what you and Scott are doing.
So my name is Ryan Earhart. I'm the owner of Navarre Insurance, the Earhart Agency. A little bit about me. I'm from the South Shore. Grew up in River Ridge. Went to Jesuit High School, LSU, and then I started working for a State Farm agency out of college. Worked there for about 5 years before I decided that I wanted to go independent. And I have friends that were with Navarre of Louisiana. So Navarre Insurance has 10 different locations now. At the time, they only had, I think, 4. And so we are a part of, we have an office in Elmwood on the South Shore and in Mandeville. We started April 1, 2020, if y'all remember. Yeah, that was a tough time, especially, starting a business, didn't have any employees. I had one that was waiting on the sidelines to come join me. And it was tough.
Baptism by fire, man.
It was. That's basically how we had to take it. It was all hustle grind.
Let me ask you a question. I mean, it's interesting that you had a State Farm background, very rigid and structured. I know I have some buddies who actually went through the process of having their own agency, and it's a difficult process to go through. Right. I had a buddy of mine who was turned down from the opportunity. He actually moved to another brokerage because of that reason, and he's still successful today. But how much did you learn working and seeing the system in which State Farm operates to be able to move over to the independent side and make an impact?
So I truly think it's a blessing because, and I don't want to speak ill of anything, but it's tough to sell with only one carrier. Yeah,
sure.
Not to have many.
It's a whole different model.
It is.
Yeah, it's like apples and oranges.
And especially they don't have an option for homeowners, which is kind of the name of the game in our area.
In our area, yes.
Where you're from in Alexandria, they probably write everybody. But in the New Orleans area, which I wasn't looking to move, the entire time I was there is, we're going to have an answer. We're going to have an answer. They came up with an answer, which was Dover Bay, which is a company that they broker out of. So you could write it. It wasn't competitive at all. Yeah. And so I kept asking, because I was believing that there was going to be a light at the end of the tunnel. 5 years later, I went through the process. It's called the agent aspirant process. And I was interviewing for a spot downtown, for a spot in Covington, and then a spot in LaPlace. And didn't feel right. I had a friend who was doing really well with Navarre in Prairieville. He's still obviously a very good friend of mine, who was a State Farm agent. He gave up his agency and went independent. And so he said, hey, just take a couple days, take PTO, come. I got there. We sat down. We went through 3 hours of work, basically. And I said, I'm making the phone call.
Yeah. So what's the difference? What's the main, obviously, let people know the value of having several different carriers you can write through.
So I'll give an example for an auto as opposed to a home. So say you were calling up and you needed auto insurance. For us, it's the same process. You take down their name, their date of birth, their driver's license, VIN numbers on vehicles, whatnot. For them, you type it up and you get one rate. You could change coverage and whatnot to change the rate.
Manipulate it, but yeah.
Right. For us, you type it into a system and we have a rater and it comes out Progressive, National General, at the time MetLife. And
like all the different people who are bidding at like a quote for it, right?
Exactly. So you always have an answer. There's always going to be a carrier that can get cheaper, or, it just depends on what you want to be with. Yeah. Now, for homeowners insurance, there was no option at State Farm unless you wanted to do the Dover Bay or Citizens.
Well, and a lot of people, I think that's really important. Right. So I think so many people become loyal to the carrier, and all their life they were with them. And then obviously we're going to talk more about the insurance crisis in a little bit, but I feel that so many civilians who are not in the real estate industry, they don't understand. You basically pigeonholed yourself. But by having an insurance broker who can, basically get all these different carriers to quote your policy, you then have options. And as we know, options help, especially right now. And so it's one of those things where it's important for someone when they're working with an insurance person to understand, are they just only allowed to offer what their firm offers? Or is it, basically your firm represents a lot of different carriers, and you basically have different options. That I think would you guys agree that's something like a lot of people just don't know that that's really what's out there?
And they don't know that certain independents don't represent every available carrier.
Yeah, that's also true as well.
That's a big deal because, we represent almost every available carrier in the market. So we will always have an answer for you. Yeah. And so that's why, that's basically what we've kind of honed in on is we're going to give you every option. We're going to show you every way that we can get your price down or coverage up, whatnot. But at the end of the day, when you're about to renew, we all know insurance goes up. I hired someone in the office whose entire job is reshopping your policy. So 45 days out, he's calling you. His name's Jake Bergeron, very nice guy. He's going to call you, and he's going to go through everything we did, and it may be a little annoying at first, but you got to get all the information again. We're just going to reshop you like you're a new customer because we want to ensure, number one, we don't want to lose you as a customer. Number two, we want you to be satisfied and stick with us forever.
And I think that's huge because you guys are being proactive and have someone whose sole job is that. Because on the other hand, you get someone who, so I'm on WWL every weekend on a live call-in show. I get people call me in all the time. They're like, well, when should I start shopping my rate? Well, it sounds like you guys are being proactive for your clients versus...
We're trying to do it before they even get it.
Yeah.
So we get it about 3 days before they get it in the mail. We try and call them before, especially if it went up.
Sure. So I think... And this is maybe a naive question, but I think it's good because we're doing some one-on-one discussions about what insurance brokers can do. And so I think there's two things that somebody who's shopping insurance or a customer of you guys is want to know about. They always think about price until they have to make a claim. So when you're talking about price and you're working on that, you're making sure they're getting the best deal on the front end by shopping them, and then when the renewal comes up, you're making sure they're good on that end. Right. But let's talk about when they got to make a claim. When somebody goes to somebody who what is it called, non-independent insurance broker, they obviously you still call your rep because the insurance being held with the company that wrote it. Right. But for you guys, how does that relationship work with the actual carrier, being that you're a broker when somebody's got to make a claim? Do they call you guys?
Yeah, I hope they call me. I try and get them to call me. In every email, I say to call me. They are making the claim with the carrier, but I try and hold their hand.
I think that's important because, how many people, obviously, our area, unfortunately, we have acts of God. Unfortunately, a little bit more consistent than we want. But most people are like, I don't even know what the first thing that I do.
Also, too, I suggest for them to call me because sometimes it may not be something you want to make a claim over.
Exactly.
Because people think, oh, this happened, this small little incident. Oh, I'm going to make a claim. Well, maybe you don't.
Exactly.
Maybe you don't. And I'm not gonna tiptoe around the fact that the insurance could go up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna say, hey, I really don't think this for your case should be a claimable.
And if I remember right, you can even open the claim but not go all the way through it, and you can even have some issues with it. And so that advice is,
yeah.
And I might be mistaken saying that. But I remember something along those lines, someone with a scenario with that. But that's golden advice though, is you should have some basically real estate is a team sport, and it's important who you have on your team because that phone call can help you basically be a sounding board of should I do this?
Well, that's also the goal of separating every individual in this company or in this industry, whether it's real estate, title company, lending, insurance, is who's going the extra mile to be in front, talk to me, let me help you. You're a client of mine, let me help you.
Yeah, I always look for the helpers. Literally because and it's easy, they stand out because there's so few people are like, let me do the bare minimum and like, let me just be transactional versus relational. Like, what can I do in the best interest of my client? And that's huge. So Scott, tell me, how are you bringing your real estate background, you know, on the real estate salesperson side into?
So I got my insurance license December 2nd. I think that was the goal. He said, "Can you get it by December 2nd?" I'm like, "I got you. I'm going to do it." The reason is so I can push through that December month, those slower, quote unquote, slower month, to be ready for when January hits. I'm like, I got it.
Which was a great plan.
And I talked to Jarrett. I talked to my wife. I talked to Ryan. I said, I just got to know this lingo. Yeah. And that was a nervous thing. I just got to know, let me have the confidence to know what I'm doing, and then I can go. And it took about a month that I got the lingo down to where I'm like, okay, I can talk to you. I can use my skill set that I had for 12 years as a real estate agent and still a real estate agent to talk to a client in the insurance world, and also feel confident that a lender can send me a quote to realize he knows what he's talking about. And I can go hold their client's hand for the greater good, which is to get to the closing table, which then translates in January of like, I had my first conversation in insurance with a client who also said he was a first-time home buyer. I said, I got you. I said, just to let you know, I'm also 10 plus years in real estate. I know what you're going through. And I can feel through the phone call his breath of fresh air that he got. I'm like, no one talked to me about this before. I don't know what I'm doing.
And it's also how you talk to them, right?
Correct. I found out what he was nervous about, which meaning this was his first time. Yeah. So I found that out, and I used both skill sets to get him to the finish line of like, okay, I'm ready to go.
But let's talk about how much experience you truly have. I mean, from as long as I've known you, when I first met you, you were a manager on a high-performing real estate team in Mandeville, correct? And your role was to train other real estate agents on how to have those types of conversations,
correct.
Right? And so just through that experience alone, you've got a leg up on most people who are getting in the insurance world, have never seen a real estate transaction from beginning to end.
Correct. And that's why the light bulb went off when this world was changing. I'm like, this is a lot. You get burnt out. Like when you're doing the amount of transactions and the deals that you're doing in real estate, it's like, can I keep continuing to do this without changing something? And
that's also why it was so quick for you to transition.
Yes,
it's not going to be a month for anybody who's new to insurances. Because you have so much experience.
It wasn't unknown. Like I could have these same once I got out my own way of like, oh, I don't know this. Like I'm like, no, just be you. But yeah, so realizing why I should do this and the long game of how important insurance is, and it's not going anywhere, and it's so important that I realized, going back to what you say about the crisis, is insurance was affecting buyers buying homes. So I'm like, how can I now help them be comfortable in general? And that's what I can do.
If you enjoyed this conversation and want to hear more content, please like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Follow us on Instagram. Follow us on Facebook. We post conversations around our podcast on Tuesdays. On Wednesdays, we have real estate-related conversations. And on Thursday, we showcase part of our Arena Collective story. If you want to learn how to be a better business person, this is where you'll find that content. Please like, subscribe, and follow us. We look forward to seeing you on our page.